Hello guys, Mike here at APL. I hope you're doing very well on this Saturday the 7th of August 2021. This is a video I've wanted to do for quite some time, but it's actually come up as a community request on the Discord server. So this one goes out to Joe at Persimmon Lane Studios. I'm going to link Joe's studio at the bottom of this video. He's doing some really cool music stuff and some really cool stuff in the audiovisual world, which I think requires some merit and someone to check out. Yeah, keep doing all the great things you're doing, Joe, and thanks for really helping to build the Discord community so far as it's in its infancy. So this video goes out to Joe, but it also goes out to the wider world in terms of what we're going to be talking about, which is file management. It's going to be quite in depth. I'm going to talk about file management across the board. So I'm going to talk about how I save my projects, how I kind of back my projects up, but I suppose more to the point is how my samples are dealt with, how my sample libraries here at APL work, which hard drives they're on, which types of hard drives they're on and why, and kind of how this is backed up, so that if a hard drive dies or if you move to a new PC, you can kind of just disconnect your hard drive and connect it to the other one. Disconnect the hard drive from one computer and connect it to your new computer. And then at the end of the video, I'll talk you through how you can link your samples back into your new system. I don't have East-West installed. I don't have the Play stuff on this Mac, but I do have native access for all your Native Instruments Contact stuff, so I'll show you that. And I'll also show you how you can relink within Contact itself. So yeah, that's basically the basis of this video. It's the hard drives I use and why, where I store my projects and why, and backup solutions for all your drives. And I suppose really this video is appropriate for anyone. Anyone who's really using a computer should have some sort of idea of how their files are being stored. But as we get into the more creative spheres, when you've got to deal with things like third-party plugins, which are huge, I think it's worth going through and talking about these principles. So let's jump onto my computer. And I'm going to talk you through the drives that I use here and why, and then we'll go through the actual file structures in Finder and talk through that. So it's a case of my OS X drive is obviously the drive that's actually physically within my Mac Pro. If you're a Windows user, this is your C drive. I only went for a 256 gig because none of my actual project files live on this drive. None of my samples live on this drive. It's purely applications. And I think there might be some Apple loops kicking around on there, but that's about it. This is an external 1 terabyte hard drive. So anything that's got HDD written after it is a hard drive in terms of the old school mechanical moving parts. Anything with SSD after it is a solid state drive, which I use more for my live projects to ensure the speed of the project. And I also use for faster sample libraries that require that extra kind of access to files quicker than, say, the legacy libraries. So this 1 terabyte hard drive I've partitioned into 2 partitions, so it's one drive that's kind of split into 2. And I did that just to try and give myself a little bit of a visual cue of what I was looking for in terms of a sample library. So I never really open this samples HDD drive. This just stores older legacy samples which don't require an SSD. And this one is kind of my like the BBC sound effects library or bits of sound design that I've done, or kind of libraries that you perhaps would buy which are just audio of big drum hits or stuff like that, which you might just drop in on the downbeat, live on this on this audio and loops drive. So I will actually jump into that drive from time to time and preview and audition a file, and then just drop it into Pro Tools or Logic or whichever DAW I'm using for use in my project. So that's a 1 terabyte hard drive which I've split among 2 drives. Ignore this one because this is just this is my Clarity M, so it's my monitoring system, which just has it's just how it mounts with the system. It will mount as a drive, even though you can't really store anything on there, and I wouldn't recommend you did anyway. Files is again, it's a hard drive. It's a 6 terabyte hard drive, and this is kind of what I use this for my archive. So anything that's a year or probably 2 years and older moves off of my work SSD onto the files hard drive and is then archived and backed up. It's also where my photos are stored, where all my old uni projects live, any kind of legacy projects I've worked on. Just my files, basically, my personal files, I suppose, live on this 6 terabyte hard drive. This is then your 1 terabyte samples SSD drive. So this is going to be any of the orchestral tool stuff, any of the kind of Spitfire audio higher end libraries that really do require that kind of that speed, in order to get great performance within your session. And then finally, I've got another 1 terabyte hard drive called Work, which is fairly self-explanatory. All my business files live on this. It's also backed up at the moment in Dropbox, but I'm potentially going to be moving away from that, and I'll explain why, and we'll go into that in the back end of this video. But yeah, my work drive is where all my current projects live. Anything I'm currently working on includes video projects. Everything lives on there that I'm currently working on. And then, like I say, if I run out of space, or if it gets to sort of 2 years, the 2-year mark on a project, I will archive all the session files off onto my my files drive, which is then subsequently archived and backed up. So that's kind of where the drives are. I've taken this photograph, which is a mess, I know. This is the back of my studio. So I've got the Mac Pro here. These two are both SSDs in a caddy going in through USB 3, so they're incredibly quick. So you've got my 1 terabyte work drive, I believe, here, and then this is the samples. Then we've got, these are 2 drives here. So this big one here is my 6 terabyte, which has got all my private files and my archive stuff on. The one underneath it is the HDD samples and the audio files, the kind of samples I showed you, the BBC Effects library, things like that. Then when we look at this side of the photograph, these two are both backup drives. So this one runs Time Machine, which backs up my C drive, if you like, my OS X partition. And this is a 10 terabyte Western Digital drive, which is connected to my backup server, which is running through a Raspberry Pi on Linux. So that's just kind of what it looks like at the back of my my desk, if you like. I thought that might be useful for you to see how I've put, there's no real nice rack for these drives. They're literally just living at the back of my my monitor. If I go into Finder now, and again I'm going to zoom in for you guys so you can kind of see. This is what it looks like for me. There are all my different drives. Mephistopheles is what I called my Time Machine drive, and then the Nextcloud Pi is the 10 terabyte backup drive, in case you're wondering what they are. Discount the Clarity M, as we've already seen, I've already said. So the OS X drive, I don't need to really say anything about that. I basically never go on it. I never use it. Occasionally things end up on my desktop, but they'll just be in this desktop file. As you can see, I basically keep nothing on my desktop, really. Occasionally I drop things down there, but I try not to. Here's my work drive, my samples drives, my files drive, and then I've got my audio and loops drive. So I'm actually going to go through some of these, obviously ignoring some of the personal stuff, but I'm going to go through them. So probably the important one you guys want to know is the work drive. So this all lives within a Dropbox archive. So anything that goes on within this Dropbox folder is backed up by Dropbox, and it also acts as a way of me collaborating with clients and other composers, other professionals, musicians, etc. on my projects. I do turn Dropbox off while I'm using the computer because I don't want it trying to back up a session when I'm right in the middle of trying to write. I don't want it interfering with any of my my sessions. Granted, it doesn't really do that, but it's just a fear I have. I just don't want Dropbox operating while I'm actually working on the session. Desktop is basically what it says. It's the desktop. So this is what people would have just dumped on their desktop. I don't do that. I keep things very much on this drive, on my working drive. So desktop is kind of my like scratch, messy desktop, if you like. The stuff that I'm currently working on, or things which I just haven't filed away yet. Legacy is old websites, old stuff that I used to run a music library. So these are some of the guys I was collaborating with. Really, that file could be moved into the archive drive, but I've just left it there for the minute because it doesn't take up too much space, and I'm just being lazy. Management is all my kind of accounts, all my signed contracts, all my stuff to do with contractors, anything to do with legalities and tax, anything to do with business development, client processes. So if a Tangentize, for instance, who I work with occasionally, they have a particular way that they like to work, like a workflow of how a project's devised, how it's delivered. So I'll put that in there so I can kind of remember that. And yeah, my accounts, the boring stuff, basically. Manuals and reading. Fairly self-explanatory stuff I've gathered on the music industry that could be useful. There we go. There's a universe for all the different publishers and how they're all linked and how they connect. Anything like that that's a resource that I think is interesting goes in the manuals and the reading, and that also includes things like YouTube partnerships I've got, or East-West manuals, which are kind of irrelevant now. Most of us will just go online. So again, that's a little bit legacy. I don't use that folder much, it's got to be said. MISC and pre-production. Can I open this? Yes, I can. So this is anything that's kind of like, well, pre-involvement, pre-production. So my buddy Les has got a project which he hasn't started yet, and I haven't started with him, so that's in pre-development. Skyquaker and my buddy Steve, this is projects he's kind of like, I might get involved with, I might not. So they're kind of stuff I want to keep, but I'm not ready to actually delve into just yet. I keep that separate from my production life because I don't want the sort of digital baggage, if you like, in my life there. My portfolio is fairly extensive, so I break things down into sessions and I break things down into bounces. Bounces is obviously the final finished product, so all my music goes in here in both WAV and MP3 format. So these are all the cues I've written this year, the last couple of years living in there, and they're all time stamped MP3s and WAVs, so they're just easy to share with clients or easy to share with filmmakers. And then of course you've got all your session files, so AuroraCast for instance, these are all the AuroraCasts I've done for the podcast. In there will be the Premiere session, the Pro Tools session, or for tracks, for instance, if we go into 2021. I spelt that completely wrong, haven't I? Let's just amend that now because that's going to offend my OCD. So when I compiled my album for Cinematic, there's the structure for that. There's the Torment session, which was a track I did. Any kind of tracks I've written on live in this, I love that, Afterburner remix, fast as fuck version. Whatever, some of my file names are fairly interesting. And then so artwork and branding, again, is fairly self-explanatory. Anything to do with photo shoots or festivals that my music's ended up in, that's actually out of date because Fragment should be in there as well. So I'm no saint, I get this wrong as well. Bands and artists, so this is when my buddy Dav interviewed me. It's a flyer that he gave me which I kept. Check out Radiation as well, please, guys. Help my buddy Dav out. He's also in the Discord if you wanted to have a chat to him. So yeah, this is how I structure things. Any promotional materials. So here's advertisements I ran for Fragments.
Fine.
Things like that. Store icons is all to do with, Apple Music or Bandcamp, Google Play, etc. Just stuff I might need on the go, like finished files that I might need. Releases is kind of how I archive any AEPL release. We're up to now 19 releases on the company, which I'm quite proud of. So in there we'll just have, the full res artwork, the kind of cut down artwork, and then the MP3s and the WAVs. That's just how I tend to kind of operate. So yeah, the portfolio section is like the finished projects in bounces, but I also keep the sessions in my portfolio as well. And then, like I say, when it gets to the 2-year mark or I run out of space, that slowly goes onto the files drive and off the main system. Production, again, self-explanatory. Anything that's commissioned work. So these are a couple of the guys I'm working with currently. Library work, so anything I'm doing for Cavalry or MIBE. They're the two libraries I tend to work with. And now I work with Cream Collective over here in the UK as well, so they'll have a folder soon as well. Album is kind of like, this is an album I'm working on, a personal album, personal projects, the Duke beats I was working on, video projects. It's just anything that I'm kind of like actually working on at the moment, mixing and mastering projects or AuroraCasts that need editing, Skyquaker stuff that we're currently working on and amending and parts and all that sort of stuff goes in production. That's anything that's currently being worked on. Although if I'm being really lazy, it will end up in the desktop folder. I'm not going to lie. Settings and templates. This is kind of there's the AEPL font that I use. So that lives in the settings folder if I need to kind of hire a graphic designer. Hello, Izzy. Those are the resources I'll send to them. Source Sans Pro is an old font I used to use. I don't tend to anymore. It's mainly this one here for APL. I store my VEPL. My VEP instances here. So this is all to do with Vienna Ensemble Pro for multi-system setups and kind of templates for certain sounds. So here you can see solo elements or atmospherics. OMFG was when I thought I'd lost an instance, and it was a really cool set of sounds, and then I suddenly found it. So it got renamed as Oh My Fucking God. But yeah, there we go. Template start. This is basically what I use to kick off my my VP template in Logic, and it's a custom environment which I made. So those are basically your settings live here. We've got Pro Tools settings for your INO. I know actually someone else asked me on YouTube about IO recently, so that's just settings that gets backed up. And then shares, yeah, this is assets for Izzy, that's my graphic designer. Cream Collective, any downloadable content, this is mainly for the NFTs, which lives live forever, and personal kind of shares with different people. And outside of that, it's me being basically lazy. Scratch is just any old rubbish I've got kicking around. So that's kind of how I structure my work, so to speak. If it's a new project, it's happening in the production folder on my work SSD drive. Never lives on the desktop. But I have got a lazy desktop folder just within that drive. Should I want to be doing that? If I move on to the samples hard drive, I organise it based on that should not be there. That is a shortcut to the SSD version, which I don't know why I've put that there. I must have been trying to jump into something at one particular time. But anyway, I digress. The samples DD, I just split them into developers. So I have HDO Hybrid 2 is Daniel James's library, Producer's Choice. So any Quantum Leaps, pianos is the only thing I've got on here. Sound Iron, SICK 1, 2 and 3. I'll just literally put the name of the developer and then their library within that file structure. That's how I work. And then the SSD stuff, same thing. So I've got Embertones, for instance. Then you've got the Chapman trumpet in there, and you've got the violin in there, the Friedlander, East West, all their libraries living within their folders. So I don't do anything too fancy, but I just keep it organized by developer, so to speak, and then into the actual library itself. Moving on to files, so this is my own personal drive, if you like. All the applications I've purchased that I want to keep. So again, that tends to live within the actual person I've bought it off. So IK Multimedia, Miroslav or Cine Samples, Drums of War. And these are the actual install files, which you could just go online and get again. But I don't tend to do that. I tend to just, I've got such a big drive there, 6 terabytes. It's not really a problem for the moment. So yeah, that's what I do. I keep my install files for my programs as well. So I've got some Wave stuff here, Beamer licenses, which I use to move things to the Apple TV. You know, just anything that I actually want to keep that I've purchased. Archives is like all my uni work and kind of old projects I was doing, stuff to do with diet. I did a YouTube channel and I just didn't want to delete the files. So eventually that will also contain music and other projects, but currently I've still got enough space on my working drive. I don't need to archive them. Tutorials I've just kept. Obviously iTunes, which has got all music that some CDs I ripped years ago, stuff like that. Photos, self-explanatory. Scratch drive is just a file of rubbish, pretty much, just stuff I don't want to delete but I don't know where to put yet, or stuff I might need to move, or old invoices, whatever, stuff that kind of needs working on. You could say that most stuff like this would probably normally live in that work drive and then within the desktop here, but yeah, I've got a Scratch drive as well for anything that's kind of not business related will live on this Scratch drive. And uploads is just a shared folder that I've got with my mate with my flatmate for anything we're currently working on. Like he did the artwork for me for my latest album. So there's the PSD files that he dropped in for me. That was cool. Probably should have ran with that. I do like that, but we went with the other one instead. So that's my kind of files drive, so to speak, moving into audio and loops. So this is what I was saying. This is anything I've kind of downloaded or acquired myself. So my recordings is anything that I've done. I was doing a bit of hip-hop at one point. So this is Metro Booming sounds. The BBC sound effects library, which is extensive. Grant Borland, my buddy, his library's Escalate. I've got that there. So he's got his WAV samples that I can just drag and drop into my session. So that's how I structure that. I just throw stuff onto a drive, really. And that's kind of it. Like, you know, like I say, Mephistopheles is my time machine, and Nextcloud Pi is my Linux server, which backs all this stuff up. So moving on to backup, like I've mentioned, this work drive is not only backed up by Dropbox, so I pay to have them host my files. It also gets backed up on my own personal server, which is running on a Raspberry Pi using Nextcloud. So I got basically 3 copies of it. I've got the copy in the drive itself on the computer. Then I've got a copy in Dropbox for my work stuff that's current. Then I've got my own backup as well. So I've got 3 backups generally of everything, and that's just how I roll. I get nervous of losing stuff, and I run Time Machine on my main Mac, so that if something goes wrong with an installation, I install a new version of Pro Tools that completely messes up, I can jump back in time and can generally rectify that problem, and again, you're not out of work too long. Moving on to the relinking side now. So let's say you completely reinstalled your system and you've got all your samples on these drives, right? So generally speaking, when you're reinstalling, let's just bring over my native access here, right? Let's say you suddenly needed to install one of these again. You don't even really need to use native access. You can literally do it within Contact. If you just bring open your Contact player, all you've really got to do is click Install Now, New Library, and now it's going to have a think, isn't it, and shout at me. Gotta love it when something doesn't work like that. Why wouldn't you let me install... Okay, sorry. Manage libraries. Sorry. Manage libraries, and then you can literally... These are all the libraries that I've currently got. I think they've changed this, haven't they? You have to use native access. Okay, forget Contact for the minute. I'll come back to it. So let's say you have to use native access, right? Which is fine. It's the new way they want us to work. It wasn't when the last time I migrated, but there you go. Let's take this library here, for instance. I just want to check that you guys can actually see this on the screen. So Contact Elements Section 2 is saying to repair it, right? Because it can't find where the files are. It cannot find them. So if I click Repair... It's going to ask me to relocate, tell me where these files are, right? I can't find the samples for this. I can't find anything. Where are they? If you click relocate, this is where it thinks it should be. So it thinks it should be living on volumes, samples SSD, and native instruments, which is actually probably true. So if I go browse, this is the Contact Elements, right? There it is. Contact Factory. I might have removed Elements. Yeah, I've removed Elements. Fair enough. I think Contact Factory took over that, so Elements is just living in my drive. But theoretically, if I still had Contact Elements, right, I could find that in this library. I could choose the folder and I could press Open, and it would instantly relink to that place. So even if you completely break your installations and you move all your samples, you can just relink them. I mean, here we've got full versions of these things. I can reinstall it. Click reinstall. Right, installation has been prevented because I don't have 29 gigs of space left on my hard drive. This is a problem people are going to find, right? But if you find yourself in a situation where something's not installed, and that will be the case, if you launch native access without any of the... If you just got a brand new PC or Mac, you install native access, you log into your account, it's going to show you all your stuff that you've got, but you don't have to download the files again. You can literally just relink the locations. It makes life a hell of a lot easier. And it's kind of the same case in Contact Player as well. If I bring Contact over, if I go to Manage Libraries, and this brings up the Options menu, you've got all your libraries here which you can tick on or tick off. But what's probably more important is your databases. So I can add and remove database. Like, here's a great example, actually. The Tina Guo library. That I added here manually. So I clicked Add. I went down to where the Tina Guo library is, which I believe is on an SSD. Silly samples. Tina Guo. And I just opened it, which then added that instance of that library straight away into Contact. Now, if I change that hard drive location, I can just simply rescan it or update it. And just hit update, and it will rescan. Now it's rescanning everything and updating anything that it's lost, right? So it makes life so much easier to be able to do this. To just reinstall, add libraries as easy as that. I'm a little bit annoyed that they've moved into this native access thing in a way, because you used to... I know I keep clicking that and you're probably thinking why. It used to be the case that you could just install a new library in Contact outside of native access or any of that sort of stuff. It looks like they want you to use the native access now, which is then where you relink it on this side if you've got missing library files, if the computer can't find the files. But I think that database is so much easier personally, I'd rather do everything just within contact, but I understand this is how they want us to move in terms of managing our libraries. So I wish I had Play. I do have Play, actually. I have a version of Play, but I don't have Play in the way that some of you guys probably will in terms of the new Composer Cloud. I've never actually used the Composer Cloud. A lot of the East-West libraries that I use are legacy. So I'll move back to me just while it's loading. A lot of them are legacy. Like, I love the Silk, I love the Ra, I love the Quantum Loops Pianos is my favourite piano library ever. I still use that. It's a massive, massive library. So a lot of my stuff's legacy. I haven't got really anything new from East-West, but I think, you know, the subscription model can work well. But what I have got, it's loaded now, is I have got this Play window, right? So if I go back to instruments, wow, they really have changed this, haven't they? Trust me to open up the word builder as well. I've got to open the word builder as opposed to the actual Play engine, haven't I? Surely, if I open up Play, it should. You can see you can tell the last time I loaded these up. I have got them in my Vienna Ensemble. There we go, browser. I have got them in my Vienna Ensemble library, but they're all... This is my thing, because stuff gets preloaded now, I hardly ever go into the sound because they're just configured years ago through VSL. There's probably another video I'll do at one point is talking through that. But okay, let's use this example, right? So here we've got all our libraries in Play, and these are all the ones that I own. I actually bought these through the years, yeah? Now, if I say I've got... First, you'd need to add a product, so we can say add... Hello, are you gonna... No, ignore me. Ignore the fact that you'd say add. You'd right click and you'd say add another library, right? And then this asks you every single list, every library that they've got. So you'd add your new library and then you'd relink the sounds. So once you'd added a library, let me say, let's add Harp Gold, for instance. Now, I don't have Harp Gold. So straight away it's asking me to tell it where the samples are. I don't have the library. But if we pretend that this was Silk, for instance, and I chose Silk, this isn't going to let me do it because I already have it loaded. If I then pressed open, Silk would appear like it has here. So straight away, I've literally added the library back to Play. So if you imagine that you've just installed Play again on your system, you don't have any samples installed at all, what I'm telling you is all you've got to do is move that hard drive or that solid state drive to your new computer, come into your Play library, right click, add a library, and straight away it's going to ask you where the sample is stored, right? The only thing you're really going to have an issue with, I think, past this, I think if you've stored your samples correctly, if you know where things are, your file management's there, you're backed up so nothing can go wrong in that capacity, iLok is a whole other kettle of fish, and I will actually cover iLok very briefly at the end of this video, because I know if you guys are watching this video because you are migrating to a new computer, if you're using any libraries that are iLok synced, so basically if you're using East-West or if you're using bit outside the scope of this video maybe, but say you're using the Slate Digital stuff or you're using Pro Tools, you're going to need to use your iLok manager. So remind me later. So this is your iLok license manager, which I'm sure many of you have seen and hate. I'm not going to log into this because you'll be able to see all my license files, but you'll basically need to unactivate your licenses on your other computer. So you'll need to go into an activation, right click on it and say deactivate or remove from this iLok if you're using a cloud installation. If it's a case that you're literally just keeping your activations on your iLok itself, all you need to do is move the iLok from the old computer to the new computer and just make sure you've logged into iLok Manager and you've logged in. And all your licenses will then live on the actual USB stick and not on the computer. If you're using the cloud iLok, which I am for some stuff, you will need to go into your cloud instance and you will need to right click and unpair it from the computer, right? If you're having problems with iLok in that capacity, join the Discord server, I'll link it below, and message me on there, Michael W. Bell, and I'll be able to help you, and hopefully Joe will be able to help you, because I reckon he's going to be a master at moving stuff around after this video. So I hope that was kind of instructive. We've been talking for around about half an hour now, and I don't want to waffle on too much off point. yeah, I hope that was useful. I hope you guys kind of have a think about how you're structuring your systems, because believe you me, if you don't take notice to this when you're doing it and then you just jump into the work and you get all your precious deadlines and all that stuff, and then something goes wrong or you don't quite know how you've structured your system, believe me, it can be an absolute nightmare when you're trying to just get back into work, and you've got those deadlines and you're trying to move to a new system suddenly. So I would seriously take a little bit of time, just gradually think about how you're saving your files, think about where your files are living, have a think about whether you need a solid state hard drive or a traditional hard drive, depending on the application. Like I say, for any faster libraries, any newer libraries, anything probably newer than 2015, I would say put onto a solid state drive. Anything pre 2015 can probably live on a traditional drive. I absolutely would have your work files, your current files that you're working on an external or internal SSD drive. I would not be using a hard drive, especially if you're doing video work, or audio, any work. Just do it on a solid state drive, and please consider a backup solution. Like I say, I know I've mentioned that I built my own Linux server running Nextcloud. If you want me to do a video on that, I will do that. That's for a Raspberry Pi. Quite a cheap. It's about 120 quid, so 149 bucks for the Raspberry Pi itself, which is a tiny little unit, and then you just need a hard drive. That's all you need, and that's your own personal cloud that you can access from anywhere else, and it's going to back up all your files through a file manager. So yeah, please get involved, guys. Join the Discord, like, comment, and subscribe on this video, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Keep those requests coming. See you soon, guys. Bye bye.